regarding bringing about something which doesn't exist. The example was given that you can't tithe something that's growing. You can't tithe it. Tithe for something that's growing, or something that's growing should be the tithe until you actually detach it. So Rabbi Yochanan says, why is it not considered to affect something which doesn't exist yet? So he said the principle is based upon anything that you have the ability to bring that about whenever it may be, but if you have control over that, that's not considered davar shelo ba'olam. Davar shelo ba'olam. So since you could detach whatever's growing whenever you choose to detach it, therefore you could affect that. Okay, that's the concept. It's interesting. We have a principle. The Torah says, "Odom ki yakdish is beiso kodesh l'Hashem." Mentioned. The Gemara says in Bava Kama that if a person steals something, it says that the thief cannot consecrate it. Why can't he consecrate it? Because it's ein shelo. Because the stolen item is not his; it belongs to the one who he had stolen it from. Odom ki yakdish is beiso kodesh l'Hashem. It has to be his house. You can't consecrate a house unless it's your house. So the thief, it's not beiso, so he cannot be magdish. What about the one who was stolen from? He can't consecrate it either, although it's his, because it's ein b'shuso. Because beiso is shelo u'b'shuso. It's his, and it's under his control. But something which is either one of these components is lacking, you cannot affect it. So the thief cannot be magdish it or cannot transfer it because it's not his, and the owner cannot affect it because it's not under his control. Okay? So there's a Ran in the Dorim speaks about a situation like this. What about the magdish something which is hefker? Something which is ownerless. And it's within your reach that if you choose to acquire it, you could acquire it. It's just a question. You chose at this moment. You said, what do I have to acquire it? Then consecrate it. I'll consecrate it in its ownerless state. But we're speaking about a situation where he could acquire it. It's not somebody else may acquire it before he is. There's no question. He could acquire it. But he chooses to consecrate it before he acquires it. No, if it's Dalar Amos, he's Koner. So that's automatically his. Speaking about, let's say, it's 20 Amos away from him. No one's within his proximity. He says, I want to consecrate that item that's within 20 Amos of my reach. Is it a valid consecration? So the Ran cites a Rebbe Lezmi Mitz. Rebbe Lezmi Mitz, who's one of the Rishonim, says it's a valid consecration. Why? Since it's biyodo, since it's within his ability to acquire it, although he didn't acquire it, that's considered under his control. That's what he says. That's Rebbe Lezmi Mitz. Some say it's a similar concept. We had said one of the understands why Eino the Maknadav Shelo Olam. Why can you not transfer something, although ultimately it will be yours? Because it's why? Because it's Einu Shelo. Because since you have no control of something that doesn't exist yet, therefore that's the reason why you can't affect it. Because you have no control. You can only affect something you have control over. Over here, he has control. If he chooses to acquire it, he could acquire it. He says, what do I have to acquire? Then consecrate. I'll consecrate it directly myself. But since the acquisition was within his ability to acquire it, we see it as if he did acquire it, therefore he has the ability to consecrate it.
We learn that the acquisition takes place in certain mechanisms, certain actions. And those actions, if there's not one of them, there's no acquisition.
Correct. That's something else. That's something else. No, he did not acquire it. Did not acquire it. We're saying he did not acquire it.
You can only consecrate something if you own it.
So that's what we're saying. The ownership aspect is because it's not under your control. It's not because you don't, and that's the way he understands it. It's not because you have to actually own it, right? It's because it's not just as the thief. We're saying that the one who was stolen from, why can he consecrate it? He does own it. The answer is because he's not in control of it. Since he's not in control of it, therefore that itself interferes with his ability to consecrate or to transfer something. Let's talk. We say, I have an orchard. I want to sell the future produce. Right. So the Chachamim say you cannot transfer that. You cannot transfer that to another person because it doesn't exist. Because until it comes into existence, it's not yours. So to do an act now to affect it for a later date, it's not valid. Because today, it doesn't exist, you don't own it. Right? But let's say, according to Rebbe says, but let's say something which is a perennial, the yield comes every year at the same time. He says you can, even though factually it's not here yet. But since it will come, we see that already within your grasp, so to say. It's within your domain. It's officially within your domain that you're able to transfer it to be effective later. Okay? So Reb Lezer admits, I mean, even that case is really a better case than this. Because everybody agrees that until it comes into existence, the effect of your transfer is not a transfer. Correct? It's only, I'm doing an act now to affect something later. Similar to this. When the produce will be detached, my act of tithing should be effective. When is it effective? Then it's going to be effective. It's not effective before you detach it. It's only to give value to the act of tithing. Retroactively, it's considered an act of tithing to be effective later.
So, Rabbi, when Shoot wants to buy vegetables, they have these deals with the farmers where they're purchasing in the future.
Everybody. I
How
mean,
does that work? According to what you just said here. How does that transaction, what's the
according to a mayor, it's not a problem. Since the futures come year in and year out, even though it's different, because there's a difference whether it's a tree or you plant a field. A tree, the tree is meant to have so many yields over so many years. If the planting, what if they choose not to plant? If they choose not to plant, nothing's going to grow. Within the context of halacha, everybody agrees it's not a valid transaction. It's a dina malchus adina. It's only because that's the way people conduct business, within this society. If it's recognized, that's the reason why it has value. Otherwise, it would have no value.
according to halacha in Israel? But what about the weather? Even a tree, there's such a thing as...
No, but you're right, but there's a presumption. You presume. There's a presumption. Does not be 100%. Does not be 100%. Doesn't be. The presumption is it will happen. It will happen. We spoke, Rabbi Yochanan said, anything which is in your ability, we see it as if what? As if it's under your control. To give value to your action. Your action. Not the action cannot be effective until you detach it. Maybe the man will have a heart attack. Who said he'll be able to actually pull it out of the ground to detach it? There's always a possibility something may happen. We're not concerned. We deal with what? We presume he'll be able to do it. We presume there won't be a drought, there won't be a blight, there's going to be produce.
So, divorce. The man wants to marry the woman after she gets divorced. So, all the three parties are standing here at the table together, and the current husband is saying, 30 days from now, I'm agreeing...
We spoke about, let's say, the Bezdin. No, let's talk about, make it simple, the case of conversion. The Bezdin agreed to convert the man, and he agreed to convert, or she agreed, yet Gemara says it's not, everybody, no good.
Because there's a possibility.
No, it's not because there's a possibility. To be considered, it has to be totally under your control.
So now it's in somebody else's control, and that person could change their mind.
Of course, since conceivably they can, that doesn't allow your action to have that special value.
I would make it, if I knew that, I would say that the weather is sort of similar to that. There's no control over the weather.
It's natural. That's natural. I'll give you an example. The Gemara says above a comma, we rule haloch in Shabbos, shnaim she'osu. Two people can participate in an act of Shabbos. Let's say you have an object which is too heavy to be carried by one person. Two people carry it from private domain to public domain. Neither is a violation of Shabbos. Neither. So the Gemara says, but a person winnows on Shabbos. You can't winnow unless you throw it up into the wind. So the wind is participating in separating the chaff from the kernel. So why isn't it Shnaim She'osu? Neither could do it, right? The person has to throw it into the wind, and the wind goes and separates the chaff from the kernel. So Gemara says, because that's called using nature. You see that as one. That's not called two. You understand? So the weather may change. No, the weather is a constant. Something has to affect the weather that shouldn't be there. The weather is there. That's a given.
So why don't the Chachamim hold like that?
Because they say...
Why is that foolish when Rabbi Meir feels that this thing's going to come about?
No, because it's
We're
not...
worried about variation.
No, it's different, Here, it has to be under the control of the person now, right? Factually, it doesn't exist.
Don't Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim also have an argument with regards to Torah, whether that applies now?
That's not remain. Has nothing to do. No.
No,
Something
he
else.
wanted to-
Something else. That's something else. Something else. Why?
Because the wind is blowing, the man takes his pitchfork, he throws it up, and as he throws it up, the wind dies down, and everything just falls to the ground. No violation of Shabbos.
No, I don't mean that. That's not the point I'm bringing out.
I'm saying there's no control.
No. There's nothing to do with that. But let's say the wind is blowing, he throws it into the wind. We don't say there were two parties involved in the process. That's called he's using nature. Okay, so that's one.
It's like gravity. Using gravity.
No.
And,
Gravity is more than wind. Gravity is just a reality of existence. Wind, because the wind happens to be blowing.
man, breaks open the dam. He says, it wasn't me, it was a partnership, it was gravity.
Exactly. But that's not...
I'm not a damager.
No, understand that. No. Understand that. Okay, it's the same thing. Just the wind the wind is not necessarily a constant. The wind's not blowing, as you said, nothing's going to happen. Gravity is always, it's a constant. It's just a reality of existence. Okay. Okay, so over here, the Gemara says, Ger tzarech shlosha. The reason why, if a person says that after I convert, I am marrying you, why is that a problem? It's biyodo, right? So it says because you need three, you need a bezdin. It says mishpat. And who says they will be agreeable to participate as a bezdin? So it is very important, Tosas here. Now, for what do you need the bezdin? Do you need the bezdin for Kabbalas mitzvos, or you need the bezdin for the tefillah? What do you need the bezdin for? So Tosas says, Ger tzorach shlosha mishpat ksiv bei kedin. Nira davka b'kalos mitzvos hu debin and gimel. Alva b'tefillah b'chad sagyo. Im kvar kibel olav ha-mitzvos. If a person accepts mitzvos in the presence of three dayonim, and then he's tovel in the presence of one, it's a valid conversion. Although the bezdin was not present time of the tefillah, it's considered a valid conversion. All you need three is for Kabbalas mitzvos. No, we're not talking. We're talking about conversion. As a woman goes to the mikveh, it's a mitzvah. Does she need a bezdin there? Of course not. But it says ger tzorach shlosh, it says mishpat. It says mishpat. Mishpat means a bezdin. So what is the mishpat going on? On the conversion or on the Kabbalas mitzvos? That you need. That's learned from Sinai, that you need a tefillah.
What exactly are the dayonim doing there? I mean, don't they have to say, we agree, we affirm?
No, nothing. No, which means they present the question, and he has to say in their presence that I accept, and as soon as he accepts, since that's done in the presence of the bezdin, and they feel it's sincere, nothing more has to be done. Now all has to be done, he has to go to the mikveh.
They have to, I guess, when they go into that, they're saying, if he says that, we are in agreement.
But is he a Jew yet? He's not a Jew yet.
If he says, if he makes the undertaking,
They have to rule. They rule that his acceptance is sufficient. That's it. That's all they have to do. They have to evaluate his acceptance, and if it is sincere, nothing more has to be done. Now we just have to go through the motion of immersing himself in the mikveh. Okay, we'll see. Because Tosei is a question. V'raya, what's the proof that for the actual tefillah you don't have three? Have to have three. Nehidi yivamos the kamer hosam huda bikorile bar armoi. Person was referred to as the son of a Gentile, a goy, mishum demovelo toval, because he was circumcised, but we don't know whether he went to the mikveh or not. Omri Shuban Levi Milo Tova Lekerio Klomer V'chilo Ro Keri Miyomov the Tzorch Litpo. What does that mean? Which means, where Rabbi Shimon Levi says, we didn't see the tefillah. But factually, in the time of the Gemara, a person who was what? Who had a nocturnal emission, he went to the mikveh. He immersed himself. So you mean to say he didn't go to the mikveh? We know he went to the mikveh. We could say with certainty went, although the Bezdin wasn't present, but factually, if we know he went to the mikveh, that's enough. You'd say, but factually, there weren't 3 dayanim. If we say the conversion has to be in the presence of the Bezdin, and tefillah, and when the Torah says mishpat, it's referring to that aspect of conversion, going to the mikveh. So what's Rabbi Shimon Levi saying? But we know, don't we know, he immersed himself for his keri, for the seminal discharge, to relieve himself of that contamination. Came mashma, medidnofik betfilas keri o mashma, lobiino and shlosha. So it's clear that one doesn't have to have 3 when he immerses himself in the mikveh.
You would need 0, according to this case.
We just have to know the fact.
0.
It's like we
No one
discussed.
needs to witness it.
We discussed. The Gemara says above a basra, when you have to alpish name Eidim Yokum Dover. Torah says for monetary cases you have to have 2 witnesses. What is that called? That's purely verification. It's called livrureg. Only to what? To verify what happened. So let's say a person's a damager. 2 witnesses claim so-and-so damaged someone's property. So what are the 2 witnesses? The evidence tells me what? Do they create the obligation? The witnesses don't create the obligation. They reveal that an action took place, and because of that action, there's a liability. And the liability is restitution. Okay? So all they're verifying. What about 80 kiddushin? Witnesses who witness a marriage. Person giving rings harei mukadeshesly. Is that a verification? They can verify, but it's more than a verification. That's called likiyume. They create the marriage. They have to witness it. Knowing that he gave a ring is not enough. Visually, they have to be there and witness the act of marriage itself. But we could say with certainty he gave the ring. It's not enough. It's more than a verification process. So over here we say the dayanim, the bezdin, have to be present only in Kabbalah's mitzvos. Without that, you cannot convert. That's a prerequisite to the mikveh. Mikveh is what? We know you went to the mikveh. If we know you went to the mikveh, it's sufficient.
But that's a requirement. If you didn't go to the mikveh,
That's nothing. Nothing.
so let's suppose now there's a question about whether this man's conversion is legal. And the 3 dayanim attest that his Kabbalah was good, but there's only 1 dayan that saw the...
No one saw it. Rabbi Shimon Levi says no one saw it, but factually we know. Knowing is sufficient. It's simple. Nothing.
How do we know
Because we could say with certainty he definitely immersed himself. He immersed himself. We could say that. Factually, he bathed in the river. That's enough.
we don't know?
We could say with certainty. Every person went, he definitely immersed himself. Did a problem. Of course, a Balkari. Of course, in those days, the way people conducted themselves, a person who had a seminal discharge, he immersed himself. Talking about Joe. No, but again, because he accepted the mitzvos. See, he believed he was a Jew. And he outwardly conducted himself as if he was a Jew. There's no question about in terms of his behavior. The question, is he a Jew? He said, well, the Bezdin wasn't there at the time of the what? Of the tefillah. So Rabbi Shimon Levi says he doesn't have to be. But since we know factually he did, because every Jew does immerse himself in this state, therefore it's not a problem. Okay?
So, Rabbi, why do they make, with this kid, why do they insist that the rabbis actually witnessed the
Wait. Tosas asks a question. He cites another source. From there, it seems to be the Bezdin's only for Kabbalah's mitzvos, not for the immersion. Atzavoro is by a woman. The woman immerses herself. She's down. The water's up to her neck. It says, and you have 2 Talmidei Chacham outside because they don't see her. It's not, and they advise her regarding the less severe mitzvahs, the more stringent mitzvahs. But it says 2 Talmidei Chachamim. Uporich, Marias, Va'abin and Shlosha. How do you say there are only 2? You need 3. You need a bezdin. So we're talking, and right after they instruct her, she immerses herself. So it seems to be you need the bezdin, not only for the Kabbalah's mitzvos, even for actual, the emergent. What?
Basically,
The Gemara asked the question. Why do you have, it says you have two, you should have to have three. I mean, it was, no, the Gemara asked, you need more than what, you need bezdin, that's the Gemara's question. Two would indicate that's testimony. But you need more than testimony, you need a bezdin.
but they're talking about Kabbalah.
But so what do we have to talk? It's a context. She's immersed. She's submerged in the water, and afterwards she goes down. Let's talk about a case. She doesn't go to the mikveh. And everything's taking place simultaneously over here.
You need a bezdin for anything
Where?
in the case of the woman.
What do you mean? The Gemara asked the question. How does it say to a sufficient? You need three. So what is three going on? Not only in the Kabbalah mitzvahs, on the immersion too, submerging herself in the mikveh. Umeshani Tony Shlosha. So the answer is, it shouldn't be, in the Bryce, it shouldn't say two, it says three. No, which means it's being misquoted. Not scribal. Everything was from memory. It wasn't being quoted correctly. Alma Mashma. So it seems to be indicated from there, the Tefillah Nami bin Shlosha. Not only do you need three for Kabbalah mitzvahs, you need three actually for the act of conversion, meaning for submerging yourself in the mikveh. The Yishlomar. So how do we reconcile the two Gemaras in Yevomis? Ishloma devari mitzvahs bin shlosha. For Kabbalah mitzvahs, you need three. You need a bezdin. Avu lo litvilo. Excuse me. Binon devadi lemitzvah bin shlosha. It's preferable that you should have three, even for what? For the immersion, for the mikvah. Avu lo la'akiv. Okay, you have to understand where he gets this from. What's the most important part of conversion? The Kabbalah mitzvahs. It's not ma'akif, but the going to the mikvah, it's better to have a bezdin. Why? Why is it better? I mean, does the Torah require bezdin? Doesn't the Torah require bezdin? If it requires, you must have it. Doesn't require it, you say two witnesses should be enough. If it's just a verified fact, okay, we don't want to rely on presumption, okay, so have two witnesses. But it seems to be over there, you need three. So what it means, not ma'akif. Inami hodabo ishlosha anu taimid mishum kabbalah mitzvos. That the Gemara says that they have told her the mitzvahs kalta mitzvah chamur is the most stringent and less stringent mitzvahs. It happened to be she was in the water, but that they have to be present when she's about to immerse herself, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's a little bit of a dochik, right? We're quoting a Bryce that says, how do they do it? And when did they present before her responsibility? When she's about to submerge herself. But it doesn't have to be. That could have been before, and submerging, they don't have to be there at all. And that's how you reconcile it with the other Gemara. Correct, correct. Not as that, but the Gemara says over there, it should not be stated two, but three. She said one of two ways. Either the three was for Kabbalah mitzvos, that's the second thing he says, and it happened to be the Kabbalah mitzvos, they just want through everything simultaneously. Okay, that I hear. The first he says, it's l'chatchila, you need three even for tefillah. Why? What do you need three? He's saying you need a bezdin for tefillah, l'chatchila, but the Ebed you don't need it.
What about one witness? Change the status of that one?
One witness means nothing.
No, it might be that
But
she's already a Jew. That's the
when?
point. When she's a couple, all of mitzvahs.
So that
You
we
have
know.
One witness. I mean,
What, she went to the mikveh?
yeah.
We don't need it. One witness is not
Zero
believed.
witness.
No, but so that's why we rely on presumption. That's what Shubin Levi before.
Jewish.
She's not Jewish and that she has to go to the mikveh.
No,
So we have a did she go? One witness would not be believed.
one witness
Would not be believed.
because she's changing the status.
Correct.
Within one witness.
Correct, correct. It's not effective. Correct, correct, correct. When? She doesn't have to, according to Tosas. She accepts mitzvos, and somehow we know she went to the mikveh. Okay? It's not a problem. She's Jewish. Of course, again, it's a question because they can't see her in a naked state. So the question, how do you do it? Vim tomar mishum kablos mitzvah nami amai bino shlosha rehodos valvos t'chsi ben mishpot v'afilu hoche amrino besan dedon afilu yichidi. He's asking a question. it says that if a person, it's Gemara Sanhedrin, that a person goes and two witnesses say a person had stated he owes someone money. So it says that it could be adjudicated by one, not adjudicated, it could be adjudicated by one dayon. So, but it says, because it says mishpat. It says mishpat. Okay? Okay. He's asking a phenomenal question. On a Torah level, what is the qualification of the dayon? You have to be a mumche. You have to have smicha. So regarding monetary, you say hefker bezin hefker. Say hefker bezin hefker. But regarding conversion, if you have to have a bona fide dayon, a qualified dayon, if today would have that qualification, conversion shouldn't be able to be actually be put into effect. We don't today a dayan doesn't have that qualification. Like today, as much as you want to put a person to death, you can't put a person to death because we no longer have the dayan who has that qualification of being a samuch. He has to have the smicha from Moshe Rabbeinu. V'yeshlomar, the shluchsai avdino can amina begitten. There's a concept even that you have to understand this concept. We say shlich shom kamoso. That initially they had said, you know where the Gemara says this also, in terms of kiddush chodesh. Every year, you know, every month, it could either be a full month or a partial month, 29 days or 30 days. What is that determined by? Let's say the Sanhedrin, time of the Sanhedrin, they did not sanctify the 30th day. It was a full month. So the 31st day, that was the first day of the future month. Today, we don't have such a thing. Today, we have Moli Choser. How do you have Moli Choser? The Sanhedrin doesn't go and declare it to be or not to be. But yet, we still have Moli Choser. Mar says that they originally had designated all future months until the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, it should be Moli Choser. I mean, how do you designate something before it happens? They have the ability to do such a thing. Similarly, they could appoint future Botei Din that you should have a qualification of who they are, although they're no longer here. Even though we say, Ein Shlich Lachamisa, you can't have an agent if you're no longer alive. But in this context, whatever that means, they're able to designate the future Botei Din, although they don't have the qualification of Smuchin, as if they are Smuchin. So regarding monetary, they are the equivalent of that. So therefore they said in regard to conversions, they're the equivalent of that. Regarding putting somebody to death, they're not the equivalent of that. So therefore, putting death penalty cannot be implemented. Knas cannot be implemented. Of course, they never designated future Botei Din to be the equivalent of themselves.
The calendar existed at that time for all the future times.
I
It's
understand.
not the same thing.
I know it's not the same. I know it's not the same. But I'm just saying it's similar to that. How could you affect something before it exists? What is it?
We're going to vest a judge who doesn't yet exist in the ability to convert someone. Very different.
No, that's about me. If we're no, we shlich shom kamos. If the one who designates the shlich is no longer alive, could he have a shliach? So it's a whole different concept of shlichus. I'm not explaining it. I'm not explaining what. I'm just saying the difficulty of it. But it's a concept that within the concept of Bezdin, they're able to designate a future Bezdin to be the equivalent of themselves. Although the original Bezdin, and also this is like a mitzvah shebegufo, I mean, either you have it or you don't have it.
This concept of death, we have a concept of death as well, where the people do not have smicha. Three people can annul a vow and so forth.
No, that's different. For there, you don't need a Bezdin. For monetary, that you don't, because that's explicit. But within the context of monetary, it says Elohim 3 times. Or means, no, Elohim means they do have to have smicha. It's like they're representing God.
In what cases do they not have smicha?
In time of the Sanhedrin, you had to have smicha. They had to legislate specially that in other situations you don't have to have smicha. If somebody steals from someone, or somebody borrows, because this was a daily event.
But the annulment of the vows. We say
No, because that's not learned from there. That's a different business. That has to do with nullification of vows. There's 3 Jews.
we call them a bit.
Yeah, yes. Regarding nullification of vows,
Text.
that criteria, that caliber, Dayan doesn't have to be. 3 ordinary Jews are able to annul a vow. No, but here the Torah says explicitly regarding monetary or conversion. There it says you have to have mishpat is within the context of the smuchim. You have to be the mumche. You have to be that qualified judge. Correct. So we're saying in this context, they establish them as if they are their agents. Regarding death penalty, they didn't do such a thing. They could have, but they chose not to. He says, okay, Odomar Rav Rabbeinu Sanel, the Beger Ksiv L'Dorasechem. Here he says something interesting. Regarding Yerus conversion, it says, for all generations. Mash B'cholin Afagav Shein Mubchim. Regarding death penalty, that you have to, either you have the court, you don't have a court. But in regard to conversion, since it says for all generations, and into the future, there may not be mubchim. So it says as long as there is something which is a semblance of a bezdin, that's sufficient. Avagav she'enim mumchin, kol hashta leka mumchin, she'ein smuchin, u'dorasechem mashma, l'doras olam. Dorasechem means for all generations, regardless of what the situation may be. As long as you have 3 Jews, that's enough. You don't have to have more than the 3 Jews. Okay, let's go further. You don't need a bezdin for divorce. It's rabbinical. Yeah, you don't need that. As long as you have the document and you have witnesses and it's witnessed, it's passed, that's enough. Okay, let's go further in the Gemara. So we're saying with the bezdin, a person does not have control, and because he doesn't have control, because the bezdin may not, even though originally they agreed, but you're not in full control. So the Gemara asks, Hanosi prut l'shivchoso, person who gives a pruta to his maidservant, and he has the ability to emancipate her. So before she's emancipated, she's not marriageable. But it's within his ability to do an act to create that transition that she becomes marriageable. You should be married to me after I emancipate you. Kiddushin. So seemingly it should be kiddushin. On that Gemara says, we discussed this the last time. Before the emancipation, what is her status? She's like a behemoth. She has no relevance to marriage. After the emancipation, she has what? She's considered an independent mind. So therefore, this is the equivalent of, even though she lives. But again, so mitzvah woman has nothing with marriage. So it doesn't make a difference. What? So we spoke of what the behemoth means. In regard to marriage, this woman is not marriageable. It's not like we explained. Produce on the field is called produce, except the Torah says if it's still growing, you can't tithe it or tithe on it. But it's called produce. Here the woman, regarding marriage, she's not considered, she cannot be a wife. So regarding that, it's like Dov Shel Ba'olam. It doesn't exist. Elohodom Ervoshi or Hanosi Pruta L'ishto. Okay. This is where we left off on Friday. A person gives a pruta to his wife. Person's married to a woman. He says, here, take this in marriage, and you should be married to me after I divorce you. So right now, you can't marry because she's his wife. But the marriage should take effect after she'll be divorced. And it's up to him. He has the ability to release her. So the marriage take effect. Hochanami, the Rabbi Yochanan have a kiddushin. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, since it's biyado, he has control over the situation. The marriage should be a marriage. Neither biyado l'garsha, biyado l'kacho. Even though he has the ability to divorce her, but now to be agreeable whether she wants to marry him, that's a new decision. So that he has no control over her. He has control to put her in a state where she can be marriageable. But whether she should agree to be married, but now the agreement means nothing. You have to be able to affect everything at this moment. Similar to the case of tithing the grain.